What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. Over the years, Lego's released a number of unique Star Wars sets, and for the most part, they're really cool for the most part. But there's one set in particular that's captivated my interest for years now. The UCS Naboo Starfighter, released in 2002, coming in at just under 200 pieces. It might not seem like that impressive of a set until you see all that shiny chrome on display in the front. Lego no longer produces chrome parts, making this a truly one-of-a-kind Lego Star Wars set. Unfortunately, it's currently valued at over $2,000. So instead of spending my life savings on a Lego set, I decided to try and build a chromed out Naboo Starfighter of my own for less than $100. If you're ready to see me go hard in the paint, don't forget to execute order 66 on that like button, and let's get building. So, how do I go about building a chrome Naboo Starfighter? Picking the design was the easy part. BrickVault has a beautiful minifig scale N1 Naboo Starfighter, which is way better than anything I could design, and since I'm going through all the trouble to have a chrome version, I want the whole thing to look as good as possible. So I snagged the instructions and ordered the parts. And here's where things get a little trickier. Lego does have some chrome parts, but the options are expensive and very limited, and since I can't build a ship out of this, I had to look elsewhere. Another option is Chrome Block City. They're a third-party seller that has a wide variety of parts, but they come at a high price. Last year I built Padme's Chrome Starship from episode 2, and to get all the parts from Chrome Block City, I would have dropped a cool $450 US. So I quickly went the DIY route and chromed my own parts, which worked out really well, so I think I'm going to try that again. Because the MOC is so small, and to help me keep track of the cost of the build, I ordered most of the parts off Bricklink instead of trying to use as many as I could for my collection. I'm working with basically 2 colors here, so sorting the parts was a piece of cake, and everything only cost me about $63. At first, I was going to chrome all the pieces for the front and then build the ship, but I decided to build it first so I could see what parts would need to be chromed and what parts weren't exposed, and just how the whole thing came together. The nice thing is everything that's gray will be chrome, so I can already get a pretty good idea of what will need to be painted just by looking at everything. Padme's ship was a lot easier in this regard because it was just one solid block of shiny chrome on display, so I just built the whole thing and then painted it. Too bad I'm not doing Mando's Starfighter. I didn't realize the entire belly of the ship is chrome as well, so this is going to be a more intense project than I anticipated, but as Count Dooku would say,
I've been looking forward to this.
This build comes together in sections, which is really good for me as it will make the whole chroming process much easier, since the wings can be disassembled from the body and the engines can be removed from the wings. Even the panels on the engines come apart pretty easily. It's almost like this thing was built to be chromed. Now instead of completely taking apart the wings, belly, and engines and spraying each piece individually, I can chrome the ship in sections, and once the parts have chrome on them, I won't have to do much rebuilding and risk damaging or scraping off the paint. It's always a treat building BrickVault models because there's always some weird new technique or way of connecting things that I never would have thought of. But on the flip side, sometimes when integrating these incredible vehicles into my MOCs, it feels like putting stick figure paintings up next to the Mona Lisa, which is always a blow to my building ego, but maybe that pride check is a good thing, as our favorite political idealist would say.
Twice the pride, double the fall.
I'm almost done with the ship and I just need to build the main cockpit area and tail. I'm really impressed with the amount of thought that went into this build. The cockpit is built right into the main body and has an impressive amount of accurate detail. The designer didn't just throw in some controls and levers, but actually made the round 3-screen display setup seen in the actual ship. There's also a cool, most likely accidental Easter egg of sorts in the build. When you put the side panels on the cockpit, it looks like a smaller version of Zam Wessel's ship from episode 2. And fun fact, I always looked away when watching her face change during that scene in Attack of the Clones because it creeped me out. Seeing the finished model, I could honestly just leave it like this and be very satisfied with how it looks. The ship looks so smooth and aerodynamic, with barely a stud to be seen. Just like I said, the bulk of the painting will be the front engines and wings. I think the biggest challenge will be getting enough paint into the cracks and crevices of this front greebled section and the corners of the engines. Now it's time to scrap the ship I literally just finished building. You gotta love how much quicker it is to destroy a Lego MOC than build it. But I am trying to keep the engines as intact as possible, so I won't have to do much rebuilding with the chromed pieces. Let me know in the comments if you would have chromed the pieces first or done what I'm doing. It's a warm, cloudy day, perfect for some painting, so I set up the parts in a box outside and started spraying a coat of black primer. This is to help the chrome stick better, since if I sprayed it directly onto the smooth plastic, it could chip and peel easily. The primer basically makes the parts more adhesive. Once they've dried, I moved them into position and sprayed on that sweet, sweet chrome. This is the best part, watching the parts go from dull black to shiny silver. Unfortunately, here's where I made my first big mistake, which potentially messed up the chrome, but I need to wait until it dries to see what damage was done. I let the parts sit overnight to really let the paint dry and stick to everything, and to my great relief, everything turned out alright. I made the mistake of trying to spray a second coat of chrome on a drying first coat, which ended up making the paint look all textured, bumpy, and scored. It doesn't look too bad, but I lost that smooth, silky look I was trying to get. The reassembling process went pretty smoothly. I just reverse engineered those instructions and put everything back in its proper place. I very gently reconnected the yellow plates to the engines and didn't have any noticeable chipping or scraping, which was good. I tried something new this time around and sprayed a coat of sealant I use on my decaled clones to prevent peeling and scraping, just to protect the pieces a little bit more, and I think it really helped protect the chrome from the yellow pieces and my greasy fingertips. The ship is ready to hit the starry streets, so it's time to add the pilot, but before I give you the big reveal, I need to build a proper display stand. There are instructions to build a little black stand to hold the ship, but with this chrome upgrade, I wanted something bigger and more detailed, and what better thing to build than the iconic hangers on Theed. And here's where I ran into a major problem. Theed is a mostly light tan colored place, and thanks to me being a clone base and battle fanboy, I only have a meager supply of tan, not even close to enough to build a portion of the hangar. So it's time to turn to my old friend Dark Tan. I'm still going to try to build an accurate setup, but with darker colors. Building this was an eye-opener. If I want to broaden my video making horizons, I really need to expand my parts collection. Theed hangar may just be a box on the outside, but the inside is pretty cool. There's a large open space in the center, and lining the sides are large pillars with clamps that hold the N1 starfighter stacked above each other, providing lots of storage space. I'm going to build the base of one of these pillars. They're going to be real simple because my Dark Tan is also pretty limited in variety, but I added some tiles to the sides to represent these pop-outs, and to make up for the lack of tan, I'm going to add in as many accurate details as I can, like these nozzles, gray cylinders, and this little box thing. At least the floor is easy, just dark bluish gray tile with light bluish gray highlights, and boy do I have plenty of that. I noticed under the ship there are some grates on the ground, which makes sense to help keep the floor clean, so I'm going to add in some grills under where the ship sits in case people spill any gas or their blue milk. Bruh. Now I just need to add the obligatory crates and other accessories, and we are good to go. Rough, speckled chrome aside, I'm really happy with how the ship turned out. But with how good the build is, I would have had to mess up the painting really bad to not be impressed with the results. I'd highly recommend getting this if you're interested. It's a really fun build and makes for a really beautiful display piece. All the smooth angles and curves will help it stand out in any collection. The chrome isn't as shiny as I was hoping, and it has a lot of texture, but I still think it's an upgrade from using light bluish gray. I was able to get in all the crevices and corners of the engines and don't have any exposed patches of plate. This is definitely never getting taken apart though, because it was really difficult working with chrome pieces and they definitely get marked up if I had to build it again. The underside turned out nicely as well, and the non-chromed pieces aren't really noticeable. Now I want to see how it holds up next to my Naboo starship. This chrome job is much better since I was able to get a smooth, mostly unblemished coat, which now that I've done this multiple times, I'm really impressed this was my first try. If you weren't able to see what I meant earlier by speckled, comparing these side by side will show what I mean, but honestly the longer I've looked at this, the more I like it. The idea of the starfighter being a little rougher makes sense. It would see a lot more action and carbon scoring, and cleaning up the front of it might be a lower priority than the Royal starships. Now, all the good stuff aside, let's talk about some fails, namely that stand. I really didn't have a lot of good greebling dark tan parts, so it's really blocky and plain, which is why I crammed as many accessories into the mock as I could to hide the shabby build. The pillars are also different widths in order to have enough room in between to hold the starfighter, which messed up the front of this one. Let's just say this isn't my best work. I do like how the grates in the floor look, and for how underwhelming everything turned out, I still think it looks like a decent ship hanger. Bad display stand aside, I'm pretty happy with how this challenge turned out. The main thing was the starfighter anyways, and I think it looks really good. The original goal was to make something just as good or better than the UCS starfighter. Even though the chrome might not be as shiny, I still think it's an easy win. This one's bigger and more detailed and costs you significantly less money to build, because adding the parts and paint together, I spent less than $100 instead of these insane numbers. Although you do have to commit a great sin by painting the bricks, so take that into consideration. That wraps up this challenge. Let me know in the comments what you think of the ship and the chrome job in the comments, and I will catch you next time, but until then, happy building.